Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier journalist and the sworn enemy of all the local toxic progressives, social justice clowns, and woke fools throughout Hudson County, Fernando Uribe. Hope you had a wonderful Halloween. Election day has come and gone, and yet there's still a lot to talk about. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, while this is a national story, it does sort of trickle down to the state level. Now, as reported this week by various news outlets, a reported plan by the Biden administration will subsequently pay up to $450,000 per person to illegals who had been separated during the Trump administration, and this could actually exceed the payments that have been given out to some families of 9/11 victims and Gold Star families. Now, the Wall Street Journal reported last week that the Departments of Justice, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services are considering payments of $450,000 to those who crossed the border illegally and were separated from family members. It is in response to a lawsuit by civil rights groups. Now, the payment could therefore amount to close to $1 million per family and $1 billion overall, although the Wall Street Journal and other news outlets said that many families would indeed get smaller payouts. Let me just give you some more information here, ladies and gentlemen, about why this story is so significant. Now, critics noted quickly after this report was published that it would be more than received by the families of those who lost loved ones than those in military service. Now, the death gratuity is a single tax-free payment of $100,000, in case you didn't know. In addition, there is a life insurance program, the Service Member Group Insurance, which is called SGLI, but that maxes out at approximately $400,000. And requires service members to have to pay into it. So, for example, U.S. Representative Dan Crenshaw, a Republican out of Texas, made the contrast between the payments and what is given to those who have lost loved ones in service to their country. His office published a statement this week, quote, Biden wants to pay illegal immigrants $450,000 for their hardship while breaking our laws. Again, Crenshaw, who is a former Navy SEAL veteran, tweeted that out last week. Quote, for perspective, if a service member is killed in action, their next of kin gets an insurance payment of only $400,000. Let that sink in. Now, folks, why I'm talking about this is because, let's be honest, it's more reckless, irresponsible spending by the Biden administration. Of course, it's acquiescing to the woke crowd and, of course, to all of these insufferable activist groups that, campaign all the time for illegals. Now, here in New Jersey, for example, we have sort of the usual suspects. We have these insufferable activist groups like the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, led by perpetual woke fool herself, Amy Torres, of course, who was a recent progressive candidate for, I believe, a committee seat in Jersey City. Or, for example, also we have, Patricia Campos Medina, a fellow PhD, who, again, whether it's leading a PAC or providing a show on sort of a semi-regular basis, talking about woke politics and about activism, right? Folks, this isn't activism. What this is just irresponsible economic policy. But you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that by watching or reading some of the social media posts by people like this. Once again, by Patricia Campos Medina or Amy Torres or Christina Ponzone. Again, it's these sort of insufferable activists that really water down the discussion. But what's even more dangerous about these three women is the fact that they actually have been getting the ear of legislators in Trenton. Why do you think we acquiesce and coddle illegals the way we do in New Jersey? Well, pretty good safe bet, whether it's, again, insufferable organizations like the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice or, Make the Road New Jersey or other, left-wing leaning groups that constantly campaign or constantly canvass for legislators. And what do legislators do? And how do they reward them for all their time and money spent? Well, they'll acquiesce to some of their policies. And this is what really, really irritates me because more and more people should be acting up and speaking out against this. Now, of course, if you expect the liberal media institutions in New Jersey to speak out about this and, expose it, well, good luck with that. Clowns like David Cruz with NJTV prefer to sort of give a platform to Patricia Campos Medina and Amy Torres by repeatedly having them back on his programs because supposedly they're in tune with what's going on in the Latino and Latina community. Not Latinx, folks, it's Latino or Latina. Okay, for whatever reason, it seems like white woke people now, or insufferable leftists, want to tell us how to speak Spanish or how to identify within the Hispanic community. But again, let me get back to the liberal media institutions. Whether it's David Cruz, right, and by the way, congrats to the Atlanta Braves on winning the World Series. It kind of sticks it to him and his insufferable ongoing tweets about his pathetic New York Mets. So kind of happy to see that. But more so, folks, it's a reminder that it's these sort of journalists that are perpetuating this irresponsible journalism by giving a platform to people like Patricia Campos Medina. And folks, I get it. You know what? I'm not going to, smear a fellow PhD, but sometimes, you look at people with graduate degrees, advanced degrees of some kind, and you kind of wonder, how did they get this far when they don't even have a basic understanding of economics? Or when they subscribe to this whole Latinx nonsense? Like, what are you telling me, ladies? Like, did you fail high school biology? Clearly you did. Did you not do well when you took economics? Because I'm assuming, obviously, those are courses you don't take in high school because they're not readily available. Maybe an AP course. But you usually take those courses when you go to college. But what you're telling me by a lot of your social media posts and a lot of your platforms and policy prescriptions is that you didn't do well during college taking Economics 101, or maybe you outright failed it. But these are the people getting attention in New Jersey. These are the people that would be canvassing at the state capitol building in Trenton or marching down in Washington right in front of the White House, begging and pleading with President Biden. No, give more money to illegals. Let's, let's acquiesce and coddle them more than we already do. Folks, let me be very clear about something. I'm the child of immigrants, okay? I'm a first-generation American. I have a Cuban mother and a Colombian father. I have a mom who left with nothing but a suitcase at the age of 17 from communism. I have a father who left a pretty bad economy in Colombia to come here for a better life, to learn a new language, to embrace a new culture, to embrace a new community. And along the ways, they raised a pretty good, upstanding young man. But you know what? One of the things that my parents won't acquiesce to is that, hey, we coddle illegals way too much in this country. And they're legal immigrants. They came here. They did it the right way, the legal way. So there's an element of compassion for them, but then that compassion runs out because then common sense comes into the room. And that's where, activists like Patricia Campos Medina and Amy Torres and Cristina Ponson and, all the typical suspects will have you, almost in tears with their bleeding heart nonsense about how we have to coddle illegals. Folks, we coddle them enough. Somehow this legislature saw it fit to give driver's licenses to illegals. Why are we rewarding people here illegally with the privilege of driving? Driving isn't a right, it's a privilege. Or why are we, trying to give them in-state tuition, right, to dreamers or to those here illegally? Folks, again, I don't care how this sounds, but I can say this because I'm Hispanic, okay? I don't really care about families separated at the border. That's not my problem. I care about Americans. I care about homeowners. I care about taxpayers. That's who should be getting relief. 9/11 families, those victims, those family members that had to see their family members die in the terrorist attacks of 9/11, or Gold Star families whose sons and daughters gave the ultimate sacrifice. That's where our money should be going to, okay? Not coddling illegals. But you listen to people like Patricia Campos Medina, Amy Torres, Cristina Ponson, and all those typical insufferable leftists, you would think we should be doing more. No, we shouldn't be doing more. We should be helping Americans. I'll be very fair when I say this. I could give 2 drops of piss about families separated at the border. You're coming here illegally. I get it. You want to leave your country that isn't governed very well. Let's be honest. I can say this because I'm Hispanic, but a lot of these countries are, blank holes. They just are. That's the way they're run. That's the way people live. That's just the truth. And I'm Hispanic. I can say this because I visited Latin America. I've seen the way that those countries are governed. I've seen the way people are forced to live. Folks, I get it. You want to escape there. But coming here illegally isn't something you should be rewarded for. But you wouldn't know that with these insufferable activists who keep telling you over and over again how it's the most humane thing to do. Yeah, folks, it might be humane, but it's costly. And of course, they'll continue to have the era of legislators in Trenton who continue to coddle illegals each and every day. I'd be careful and I'd watch out because these women are dangerous. Not just because of, their lack of policy prescriptions, but because of their lack of understanding of basic concepts like economics and biology. And that's what makes them dangerous. It's not people like me, folks. I come with the facts every single week. And if I'm wrong about something, hey, write to me, tweet at me, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. But here's a spoiler alert. You're not going to find anything that I'm saying to be factually inaccurate. I can't say the same for those others over there where they're factually inaccurate on a consistent basis. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. And now to some local stories for your consideration. And let's look at election results just 24 hours after they've been posted. Now, folks, I've been talking about Jersey City politics forever on this program, and let's go with that. Now, in the mayoral race, to no one's surprise, Stephen Fulop won a third term pretty easily by winning approximately 25,000 votes. But what was a bit of a surprise, though, and I think a lot of insiders and activists and opinion journalists like myself were kind of, a little in flux about, was what the vote total was going to be for concerning Lewis Spears. And Lewis Spears secured 11,430 votes. That's a lot higher than most people had him. Now, whether that was a protest vote for Stephen Fulop, that remains to be seen. Again, the mayor won a third term pretty handily. He certainly has a mandate to continue forward in his vision of what Jersey City should be. But let's look at the council races, because this is what was really interesting. Now, at the council at large seats, I was wrong. Two of my three picks came out. But Joyce Waterman was the leading vote getter. The council president received 16,885 votes. Daniel Rivera received 16,343 votes. And Amy DeGeese received 15,890 votes. Now, one of my picks last week was current Lincoln High School principal and fellow member of Cowboys Nation, Chris Gatson, receiving only 9,868 votes. Now, he was sort of the leading vote getter from a lot of those independent candidates, which included June Jones, who had 8,418 votes. The incumbent at the time, Rolando Lavaro, received only 7,871 votes, and Elvin Dominici came in last with 6,981 votes. Now, this is a really interesting turnout, folks, because, again, a lot of people thought that the incumbent Rolando Lavaro, because of, the base that he had, where he lives in Jersey City, and certainly his time on the council, gave him an added advantage. That clearly was not the case. Being on the Fulop ticket greatly benefited, obviously, the woman who took his place, and that's HCDO chairwoman, Amy DeGeese. I'll make sure to have Amy on later on this month on my 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking to Hudson, to talk about the election results and subsequently what she'll be doing on the city council once she takes office on January the 1st. Let's move down to some of the ward races, which were very, very interesting. Let's start off in Ward A, where Denise Ridley won pretty predictably, but surprisingly, folks, she secured 2,861 votes, and Kristen Zadroga Hart, former assembly candidate and the current president of the Jersey City Education Association, received 1,555 votes. I would argue, ladies and gentlemen, had Kristen gotten into the race a little bit sooner, that vote total would have been a lot closer, but she got into the race a little bit late, and I think it shows by this turnout. Again, nice showing. Kristen has nothing to be ashamed of obviously, with this turnout. But again, I think if she wants to run either for assembly or for a council seat in 2025, it's about getting in the race a little bit earlier. Let's move on to Council Ward B, where, to no one's surprise, Mayor Prince Uribe won with 2,055 votes, but Joel Brooks, surprisingly, securing 1,780 votes, a guy with relatively very little resources to campaign with, but he ran on a pretty progressive message. He's one of those progressive Democrats of Hudson County, Democratic Socialists, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? That apparently resonated with some portion of Ward B. Apparently it wasn't enough, though. Congratulations again to Mayor Prince Uribe, a regular on Talk on the Hudson. Let's get to Ward C, and very interesting race here. No winner declared. Richard Borgiano, the mayor's selection on his ticket, received 1,863 votes. And here's a surprise, though, and because I picked Tom Zupa to win this race, but Kevin Bing, once again, another progressive Democrat, another Democratic Socialist, secured 1,239 votes, with Tom Zupa only securing 1,080 votes. Again, no 50+1 plurality in Ward C, so it will go to a runoff in December. Let's see what happens between Richard Borgiano and Kevin Bing. It's definitely a race you want to keep an eye on, and certainly it could help not shift the balance of power on the council in terms of the mayor, but having one less person on the mayor's ticket obviously will not be great for Mayor Stephen Fulop. So that's definitely a runoff race to keep an eye out for. Council in Ward D, no one's surprised, Yusuf Saleh, fellow Rutgers alumni, with a pretty convincing win, 2,148 votes, compared to Danielle Fryer, who somehow surprisingly received 1,459 votes, and even John Salerno with only 276 votes. Not pretty bad showing there, but pretty surprising to see Danielle, again, another progressive Democrat, another Democratic Socialist, And very interesting that sort of ideology resonated with 1,459 voters in Ward D. But once again, no one's surprised there with Yusuf Saleh winning in Ward D. Folks, here's a big shock for me as we move on to downtown Jersey City in Ward E. Incumbent James Solomon won pretty convincingly with 5,454 votes compared to Jake Hudnut, the Jersey City chief prosecutor, who only secured 2,473 votes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just preface this by saying that these vote totals are as of NJ.com this morning. We don't know if mail-in ballots have been counted yet. Again, I can't confirm or deny that, but these are what the vote totals are thus far, and it seems like James Solomon won pretty convincingly. But again, big surprise there. I thought Jake was going to take out James Solomon. I thought there was a lot of momentum for Jake. Being on the mayor's ticket, I thought, was a big plus for him. And this is a big blow to Mayor Stephen Fulop. There's no way to say it. He put a lot of money into this race. He put a lot of resources and time into trying to win his old ward where Fulop was the councilman at one time before he became mayor. But it's a pretty resounding victory for James Solomon. So congrats to him. Hoping to have him back on the podcast. I know he kind of shunned me during the election season, not wanting to come on. Maybe we can sort of smooth things out and be gentlemen about it. I mean, I'll welcome him back to the show. We'll see if James Solomon will be receptive as well. And in Ward F, folks, big surprise there. Not to me because I picked this race, but Frank Educational Gilmore won with 2,924 votes compared to Jermaine Robinson, the mayor's pick, with only 1,780 votes. Vernon Richardson with a pretty pathetic showing of only 560 votes. But folks, congrats to Frank Gilmore. He's a guy who I got to interview on Talking to Hudson. Gentleman to me. I look forward to having him back on again. And listen, he's certainly going to be a very progressive and independent voice on the council. It remains to be seen how much he's willing to work with either James Solomon, who's another dissenting voice in the council, or if he's willing to work with Mayor Fulop himself. But again, congrats to Frank Gilmore, my pick in Ward F. And again, this is a big surprise. I think a lot of money was put into Ward F. A lot of people thought that Jermaine Robinson had a lot of political capital because of still being on the mayor's ticket, despite some of the baggage he brought to the table. But hey, Frank Gilmore, he's living proof that you have to get out there, you got to canvass, you got to knock on doors, and folks, every vote matters. Clearly that was the case in Ward F. So congrats to all the winners. Congrats to those who didn't win because, again, running for office is a very demanding endeavor, and it takes a lot of time, money, and really just sort of mental energy to go through this. So congrats to everybody who ran and participated in our democracy, and hopefully Jersey City continues to move in a much better direction in 2022. Let's keep it in Jersey City, and a special thank you to Andrea Crowley-Hughes from the Jersey City Times for her report on this story. It was announced this past week that Franklin Walker, the superintendent of Jersey City's public school district, will be retiring in January of 2022. Now, several board members confirmed Walker's coming retirement, which subsequently he announced through a letter to the board this past week. Now, district schools are closed this week, although the central office remains open. Now, no statement has been posted as of Tuesday this week on the district's website or Facebook page, where the superintendent's messages are typically shared. Now, Walker has led the district since early 2019, when the board appointed him as an interim superintendent after the firing of former superintendent Marcia Lyles. Now, the board made his position permanent in December of 2019, approving a 4-year contract that would extend through 2023. Now, for those who are not aware, Walker himself is a product of the Jersey City Public Schools and a graduate of Ferris High School. Now, Walker began his teaching career in the district as a health and physical education teacher in 1974. He also had briefly served as an interim superintendent in 2011. Now, Mayor Stephen Fulop was quoted as congratulating the superintendent on his retirement earlier this week. The mayor released a statement saying, quote, "Congratulations to Franklin Walker on his announcement of his plans to retire, and we all appreciate all that he has done for the Jersey City schools over his long career." This announcement also raises the stakes dramatically in the upcoming Board of Education elections, as 3 new board members will play a huge part in deciding the future and the leadership of the Jersey City Public School District. Now, Fulop in April criticized Walker, though, for, quote, "a failure of leadership in deciding to delay reopening of the district schools for the 2020-2021 academic year." Now, Walker quickly reversed his decision to postpone in-person instruction until September 2021, which he had said he was guided by science and the realities of safely staffing a district of 30,000 students for in-person and remote learning simultaneously. Now, Jersey City schools provided virtual instruction from the beginning of COVID-19 and during the pandemic until April of this year. Some parents and board members alike were disappointed by the delayed rollout of in-person schooling, while other parents and staff members thanked the superintendent for waiting. Folks, listen, I've had a chance to meet Superintendent Walker at some events. He's a gentleman. Certainly his public service and his dedication to education cannot be minimized. He's a guy who has served honorably. He's a guy who's been very invested in the lives of kids for decades in Hudson County's largest city. So it's a retirement well-deserved. I know he wants to step away, do other things while he's still relatively young. And that's what retirement's for, folks. You don't want to retire too late. You want to be able to sort of enjoy the twilight years and do enjoyable things. Maybe travel, pursue another career, take up a hobby, whatever the case may be. That's what makes retirement wonderful. And if anyone's earned it, it's been Franklin Walker, who's been, once again, dedicated to kids in Jersey City for his entire adult life. So we will see who gets appointed to this position. We know that the Jersey City Board of Education races have a lot to do with this, and as the mayor said, it's going to have a great influence about who leads the school district moving forward in 2022. Let's stay in Jersey City once again, and certainly, folks, the Board of Education races are in, and the results are not a surprise for a lot of Jersey City residents. And once again, a special thank you to John Hines from the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, the Education Matters team pulled off another sweep in the Jersey City Board of Education elections, steamrolling the competition in the 9-person contest. Now, Natalia Ioffe, Eunice Barkuch, and Paula Jones Watson had the backing of the Jersey City Education Association in their latest battle against the, quote, Change for Children team. Now, both sides, again, spent six figures in their campaigning and ads, largely due to the influence of super PACs, which I think many Jersey City residents are becoming quite tired of, especially in local races, as they try to win three-year terms on the board. Now, the new team replacing board president Musa Bali, trustee Marilyn Roman, and trustee Joanne Terrell Page, who all opted not to seek re-election, won in definitive fashion. Jones Watson scored 12,485 votes, Barkuch earned 10,526 votes, and Ioffe notched 10,427 votes. Now, Doris Tony Irvin of the Change for Children team finished in a distant fourth place with only 4,653 votes, and the three independent candidates were all ways off from placing. This is the second year in a row that the Jersey City Education Association-backed team won all three contested seats. Folks, it's interesting when it comes to Board of Education races. Not every township has them. Some townships in Hudson County, or even in New Jersey for that matter, those spots are appointed by the mayor subsequently in those municipalities, but that's not the case in Jersey City. And what we're witnessing is an enormous amount of politicking, campaigning, canvassing, phone banking, whatever you want to call it, folks, buying social media ads for campaigns. It's working. And it's working in Jersey City, specifically under the umbrella of the Jersey City Education Association. And it really, again, and as we just reported here today, with Franklin Walker announcing his retirement coming up in January of 2022, be very interesting to see where the Board of Education and the direction that they move in when it comes to selecting, once again, a new superintendent. Like the NJEA at the state level, the Jersey City Education Association is quite the powerful lobby. It's quite the powerful union. It's quite the powerful mobilizing organization during election time. We see it statewide, folks, but more so we see it here in Hudson County's largest city, where they'll continue to have a great influence on who gets elected every cycle to the Jersey City Board of Education. Lastly, let's move a little bit north to the Mouse Square city of Hoboken, where Mayor Ravi Bala and his council-at-large candidates won their races decisively. Special thank you to John Hines, as always, for his excellent reporting with the Hudson County View. Now, according to preliminary tallies compiled by the Hudson County Clerk's Office, Mayor Ravi Bala was re-elected, obviously running unopposed, and his council-at-large candidates won in a pretty convincing fashion. The mayor released a statement overnight, quote, "This was an overwhelming victory tonight for Mayor Bala and the team Bala at Large council slate of Councilwoman Emily Jabor, Councilman Jim Doyle, and Joe Quintero. Hoboken voters sent a message that they strongly approved of the performance, policies, and new proposals of Mayor Ravi Bala and the council team, along with everyone involved with the campaign. Again, according to Bala campaign spokesman Rob Horowitz. Team Bala thanks Hoboken voters for the strong mandate that they provided, one that will create momentum for leading Hoboken forward. Now, Bala got 8,170 votes, with Jabor leading the council team with over 5,282 votes. Doyle and Quintero were both hovering around the 5,000 vote mark. Now, Quintero will replace Councilwoman at Large Vanessa Falco, who decided not to run again in favor of directing a new housing division with the city early in 2022. Now, their slate challenge came from the, quote, independently together team of Cheryl Fallick, Sheila Brennan, and Paul Presidano, who had support from council members Mike DeFusco, Tiffany Fisher, and Jen Giattino, but were unable to force a runoff after losing nearly 2-1. Ian Rintel, Pat Waiters, Cindy Weingand, and Manny Solar Rivera all ran as independents and were way off from having any sort of striking distance in terms of an impact on the vote totals themselves. Folks, it's really interesting about Ravi Bala. This is a guy who 20 months ago looked politically dead in the water. COVID hit, and a lot of people applauded his leadership, his direction, and we saw that some of the potential challengers, like Councilman Mike DeFusco or even Michael Russo, just stepped to the sideline and said, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth the time and the money and the energy to challenge Mayor Bala. As we all saw, a lot of Hoboken residents were pretty satisfied with Bala's leadership. We saw it obviously with these council races, and subsequently, you would think that coming up in 2025, Mayor Bala will probably continue to be a very big power player in Hudson County politics, having now won a second term, and again, even though he ran unopposed, running and winning with a very big margin. Definitely, Ravi Bala is a guy to keep an eye out for in Hudson County politics in the next few years. We'll certainly keep covering his rise as well as the others in Hudson County, who we all know are the big power players. Obviously, first and foremost, Union City Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack, along with State Senator and North Bergen Mayor Nicholas Sacco, as well as Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, all big power players still remaining in Hudson County, not just in 2021, but as we all know, for the foreseeable future. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/hmgtv. You can check out the Hudson Media Group on their YouTube page, in addition to make sure you like them on Facebook and follow them on both Instagram and Twitter. In addition, ladies and gentlemen, you can go check out previous episodes of the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. It's the best podcast you'll listen to concerning Hudson County politics every week on Blog Talk Radio. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen, at Professor Fernando Uribe. Also on Twitter at NoFilterUribe. Make sure you like Talking the Hudson on Facebook, and also like Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe, as well as the Hudson Media Group on Facebook as well. Always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with New Jersey's premier journalist and the sworn enemy of all the toxic progressives, social justice clowns, and woke fools in Hudson County, Fernando Uribe. I'm saying so long, and as always, thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.